Hi there, this is Donna Bordeaux with Campground Accounting, and you are listening to Campground Compass, the show dedicated to campground owners in an entrepreneurial mindset who seek to grow and expand in the wild and wonderful world of business. Hi there, and welcome to Campground Compass. I am your host, Donna Bordeaux, and I'm with Zach Bordeaux from Campground Compass as well. We have a show for you today about something you don't probably think about much, and that is how something is creeping in to create cancellations and lower your revenue. And that
Mhm.
thing is RV service. And there's some issues. So let's talk a little bit about it.
Yeah. RV service is just, um, it's one of those things that you don't even think about if you own a campground. Most people at least don't think about it. But yeah, we've dealt with it a lot over the years of having an RV. There's been numerous times where obviously you take it in for routine service or you need something done like an emergency thing. But for every second that RV is in the shop is a second that you're not making money, and that is a hard truth that campground owners need to understand.
Yeah, and whether a person owns a big camper, a little camper, it doesn't really matter. It costs them a lot of money to invest in whatever piece of equipment they have, and they hate to see it wasted by sitting in the repair lot waiting for something to happen. So there are lots of things that have to be fixed that could cause somebody to have to cancel a trip. If your toilet's not working, if your water pump isn't working, if your air conditioning isn't working, we've had all of those things happen over the years,
If an
and
axle
many
blows
more.
off.
Yeah, if the axle doesn't work, you can't obviously carry on and go about your daily life. You have a road bump there, and that's based on RV service. There are some industry problems, I think, in the service that we want to talk about just to make you kind of aware. Um, with RV servicing, you typically take it into a repair shop, or a lot of cases, it might be the dealer that you bought it from. Now, sometimes you might buy it from a dealer that's not close to home, so you have to take it to a different shop to get it repaired. But the process is a little different at each one, but in general, it's troublesome. You can't get things fixed in time. They have parts problems. And some of it, honestly, is just sloppy systems in repair shops that have not been brought up to the current standard when we have all these influx of new campers out there. When we had all of the manufacturing increases, sometimes the quality got a little shaky there. That creates more repair orders, more places that people have to take their RV in to get it repaired.
Yeah, especially through COVID, I know that there was the whole thing was that they would push out they were trying to get out as many RVs, but they weren't really that worried about the quality inspection part of it. You'd get an RV and then you would just kind of bring it back to the dealership whenever you drove it a little while and say, okay, here's this, and this that need to be fixed. And
Yeah.
they would apparently fix it. Sometimes they would, sometimes they wouldn't. But it wasn't like okay, we're going to push out X number of perfect RVs. It was like, how many RVs can we get out? Doesn't really matter if they work that well or not, because they'll just bring it back and pay for service. But or it might be covered under warranty, obviously. But yeah, it's a rough time.
And there's a commonly known term when people are buying RVs now. Sometimes people will prefer to buy one that's got a year or two old because somebody else did the shakedown. The shakedown is when you drive down the road and you get to your destination and you find something is broken, or there are screws in the floor and you don't know where those came from. You're going to find out eventually. But there were some situations probably where the labor force was strained. They didn't have enough labor to meet all the quotas of the demand to get things out. So things were unfortunately rushed, and that's leading to a lot of repairs. I have also heard that sometimes the manufacturers know there's a problem, but they figure they'll catch it on the warranty side. Not a great process. But in any of those cases, when you take your RV in for service, as we said, we've had many cases where we've had to cancel reservations at your park. So this has a direct effect on every family owned campground. Since that RV service process is a little imperfect, we'll say at this point, and needs a lot of improvements, it causes the trickle down effect to where it's reducing your revenue. We don't
Mhm.
like it.
Yep, we want revenue to be up, not down. So,
Exactly.
especially, you know, in COVID and that kind of stuff, there was a lot since there's a lot more bad stuff produced. There's a lot more cancellations. There's a lot more kind of things going on around the industry that you might not even think of that are definitely affecting your profits and the amount of money you're actually bringing in.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about an example of how this might affect you. And then we'll talk a little bit about what we think should happen in the service industry. So if you're involved in the service side and you say, okay, well, what do we do differently? We'll talk a little bit about that. But let's give an example. So I can count on several fingers how many times we've had to cancel reservations, including within the past couple of weeks. I've had to cancel reservations because the RV's in the shop. Um, so let's assume for a moment that your daily rate for an average campsite is $75. And I had a reservation. I was going to stay with you for 5 days. All right. So the old math, I'm not doing this in my head. I did this beforehand because I don't do math in my head. That means that you had
Hey, there's
$525.
not all accountants are good at math. Some are, some aren't. But
And
that's
there's a difference between a mathematician and an accountant.
yeah, there are.
Yeah,
Accountants use calculators, even if it's an
absolutely.
iPhone calculator.
Or yeah, iPhone calculator or my Google Sheets, I lean on them heavily. So that reservation for my 5 days would have been $525 worth of revenue. I just called you up and said, look, I can't make it. My RV's in the shop. It's not going to be done on time. They're waiting for a part. So you took that cancellation, and let's assume for a moment you can't fill that spot. So you lost $525. If I am one of 5 customers in a month who has this same problem,
Which is
you
not actually that unreasonable nowadays. 5
no,
people in a month that have that same exact problem with the
no,
amount of things that we've seen around even just people around us in our little close-knit RVing groups,
yeah,
that happens a lot more than you would think.
absolutely. I think 5 is probably a pretty conservative number of the number of people who have a change of plans because of equipment failure or a breakdown on the way.
Mhm.
So that those 5 people at 525, that is now $2,625 a month that you lose in revenue. So you just lost $2,600 because 5 people had equipment breakdowns. All right. So let's go one step further and let's make that into a yearly number. Let's say that happened every month of the year. That is now $31,500 in revenue that you did not receive because people's equipment was not able to come to your park. They were in the shop. All right. That's a lot of money. I'm sure
There's
you
a
could
lot of
figure out
things there's a lot
things
of
to
things you
do
could
with it.
buy with $31,000.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you make a lot of improvements to your park to earn more revenue. You could put that together to over 2 years and pay for a park model and have more revenue coming in based on your rentals too.
Mhm.
So let's get to the fun part now. How do you guys fix this? You don't control the RV service if you're a campground owner. No, you don't. You're right. But we've all got to speak up in the industry when we see problems, that especially that trickle downhill and affect your bottom line. We've got to get some motion going on to fix this problem. So there are a couple ways that I see that could help or alleviate the problem. The first one for you is to make good relationships with mobile techs. Now, I know a lot of people are afraid of having, any old Joe Blow coming in and peddling their services to your guests. I get that. But find a couple of good mobile techs and line them up. Tell them that they're welcome to come to your park and that you will send people their way. it will go both directions. So you can both help each other. All right. I know we've talked about Blue Water Key in the past. They have actually an approved list when you check in of local vendors for different things. Mobile Tex is one of them for jet ski rental or kayak rental. All of those you
Restaurants, anything like
probably,
that.
yeah, you probably have that kind of a list to help guide your guests to make sure they have a good experience. And this is just one other way to do that. Also, you will have people, again, we've done it ourselves. We'll be in your park and have an issue that is making us uncomfortable, but we put up with it because we can't find somebody to fix it right away. We'll have to wait till we get home. So let's say that you're in a park and it's kind of hot and your air conditioner's not working. Some people, depending on the temperature, will push through it. Maybe we'll go to the pool, but they're sleeping hot. They're not having an enjoyable time ultimately. So help make sure that their guest experience is as great as it can possibly be. Line up some mobile techs and have a good relationship with them.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that that's such an easy thing to do that there's no reason not to do it. Not to,
Yeah, it's a
there's people in
win-win.
your area. Yeah, just Google a few, contact them, say, hey, especially if you're just building or buying a park, say, hey, we're looking for some mobile techs that we can use for people in our park that connect the people,
Yeah,
and that'll bring
dependable.
you connections as well. It can't hurt to do that, um, and to kind of get a better grasp on the people around you in the community that you're really in, because that's the ultimate goal of this, is to make people happy. Family owned campgrounds targeting family people, the main goal is to make people happy, to make people have an enjoyable experience with their family. So I know we've had air conditioners break like you had earlier. All of it just goes downhill from there, because then it's hot. So then I start complaining about it's hot. And then you start complaining about how I'm complaining about how it's hot. And then I start complaining about how you're complaining about how I'm complaining about how it's hot. And then it just goes back and forth. It just keeps building up on top of
Yeah,
each other. So make sure that you have some way of making people happy. Even, it's something that should be so simple that people overlook.
yeah.
Yeah.
And even I'll give you another one to add to your list. A locksmith.
Hmm.
Do you remember I locked myself, or I locked us out of our camper one time when we
Yep.
were in Memphis, or Crossville, Tennessee, I think it was. We were in Tennessee, and it was actually Zach's birthday, and we were going out for a birthday dinner. I was taking the dogs out, and somehow I magically locked the keys inside the camper. So I asked at the front desk if they knew of a locksmith handy. Nobody knew. So I had to make some calls, try to find somebody to come out and get us back in. A guy finally did, so that was good. And
And
heaven forbid, if you have that situation, go back to that guest and say, "Hey, how'd that work out for you? Did you find somebody? If you did, could you give me their name so I can add them to our list?"
hmm
you know,
yeah, and I remember that guy. I remember this vividly. He just went over and doot 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 and
yeah,
just
2
open it right
seconds.
up. Yeah, took him
Yeah,
5 minutes.
yep,
Not
you're
even.
back in.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
That's
yeah,
yeah.
it's kinda just that matching of the supply and the demand, like we're always talking about. If people need something and you can help make that connection, you're part of the solution and part of the great guest experience that you wanna offer.
Hmm.
Alright, so let's dive into the harder part now. How do you fix service at a dealership? Well, again, this one's more about rattling the chains up the way to get the industry to kind of come to terms with adding some technology to the process and making some improvements to how they handle their guest service for their people. So, stepping back just a little bit, if you buy an RV or camper or Class A, Class C, whatever it may be, a lot of people will have it serviced at the dealer they bought it at. And sometimes those dealers that they buy it at say, we will only service things that we have sold because they have such a backlog. Uh, in that situation, People buy with that dealership so they have a place to take their camper to get it serviced. That may be a deterrent in buying it from a place that's far away from home because you may not be able to find somebody locally who will service your RV, whether that be under warranty when you first buy it, or if you have it longer term, just getting general repairs done. So that's one consideration. Now, the ultimate problem there is we have a supply issue and that there are not enough RV techs. So another thing that goes along with that that I'll mention is if you know of kids coming out of school, people who are needing jobs, man, being an RV tech, if they have that mechanical ability, you can make a ton of money. And there's such a need and a demand for that position. I encourage them to check out going to an RV tech school. I know the ones in Elkhart recruit heavily and offer a lot of scholarships to get people to come there. You don't obviously have to move to Indiana to do this. There are needs all across the country, but check out those programs to really get that get the hands-on people in the jobs to help this problem be eased.
Hmm.
But diving a little deeper into how the service works, in a lot of places, again, I'm speaking from personal experience here, when you have something that's broken, you have to take your equipment and leave it at the dealer, and they'll get to it when they can. So, uh, I had a friend who they had a problem driving. They couldn't drive their RV. It wouldn't get any speed up. It was a diesel pusher and had an issue. They took it into the shop. It sat there for a week before it was even diagnosed or looked at. Then they said, oh, well, we'll have to order parts. That'll take another 6 weeks to get here. So we're taking now 7 weeks when if the diagnosis had happened and order the parts immediately, you could have shortened that cycle a week. So just the process of entry, kind of like when you go to a hospital emergency room, you don't just sit there and wait until you see the doctor. They have a triage unit who assesses what you need and gets that lined up so the right people are ready when the time is ready. So RV service needs triage really badly, and most places don't do that.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. I know. Another example is when we were trying to get our fridge installed on our camper. We had a new fridge. Well, on our new camper, we wanted to get another fridge for outside that goes, underneath the cabin. So we took it in for service, and they serviced it, and they didn't finish everything on the list, but that was definitely on their list. And then we called them because we were supposed to be, long story short, we were supposed to take it back in for service. And we said, well, have you ordered the fridge yet? Well, we didn't get a chance to measure it. Like, it was on the lot for, I don't know, even know how many
2 weeks
weeks.
it
Two
sat there.
weeks. And they couldn't have measured. Well, we couldn't measure we didn't get a chance to measure the compartment.
How long does it take
Really?
to make a measurement? And also, I mean, from a pure sales standpoint, if we decided we weren't really determined to get that fridge, we might just say, screw it, we won't do it.
Hmm.
Now you've lost probably, I don't know, I'm just guessing $1,000, $2,000 worth in revenue.
Hmm.
So, if we could just get the triage part of this lined up, that would alleviate a lot of it. The other part, and this again, speaking from recent experience, they had a wall of folders with work orders in them that lined everything up. They said, we're out 2 weeks on our work order. We said, can we bring it back in 2 weeks? Do we have to leave it sitting here? We'll just bring it back just in time when you're ready to do the service because we have places to go. They said, oh, no, no, we got to have it here and ready. Well, why? That doesn't make an ounce of sense. Why does it have to be sitting there, taking up all their space, them maneuvering equipment around it all the day, and taking a chance that something bad will happen to it? Something bumps into it, something gets stolen, broken into, it gets rats, who knows? But why do you want that liability of having my equipment sitting there for 2 weeks? if you call me 3 or 4 days in advance, I'll get it there, you know? So that part doesn't make sense. But then let's talk about that process still again. So they have all these folders on the wall with work orders in them. And every day when they finish work orders, they scooch them all up. I mean, this is like not where's the technology in this process? It's completely missing. There is software that would help alleviate these problems. And even I'm just imagining internally in the software saying, like, okay, this one has an issue with electrical, and this one has an issue that just needs some paint. I'm sure that in that warehouse of service people, you have a guy who does electrical better and a guy who does paint better. And they might even be separate people who have to do these jobs. Can we not line these up and assign the right people at the right time to do the right job?
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as using a Todoist. You know, it's a
Yeah,
basic platform. It's literally free. Literally free. The
because
cost
these people are paying
$0.
paying tons of money to run a service center. My guess is that most all these people have software that does this, but they're not using the right capabilities to do it.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's like, again, this is another thing that's mind-boggling. Why would they have paper work orders that they print out when they could just have them on the, you got your service tech, you're at home, you're probably watching a TV show, eating Doritos, drinking Mountain Dew, sitting on the couch. You can look at your phone and go, okay, well, I have to do this, this, and this tomorrow. Okay. You know,
E-
it's
Even
it doesn't sound
statuses.
that crazy. It does not sound that it
No,
doesn't sound crazy to be able to look and see exactly what needs to be done, exactly in what order. It should be
and
simple.
just
But
to have the status of this one's waiting, this one I have to call, they're going to bring it in, to have the notes of each of those, to have this one I'm waiting on parts, this one's waiting on a quality review or waiting for a pickup. I mean, I'm seeing like a Trello board here of the
yeah.
Kanban of all those different types or
Mhm.
sorting them. You know, we had another one we had this same problem on. Can we just group these and do similar tasks together to gain some efficiencies?
Yeah, and
There's a
And
lot,
another side of this is that from the customer's perspective, if they can look at it and go, okay, they fixed the paint issue, but they still have to fix the fridge. Okay, well, I know what's been done and what still needs to be done.
right?
Versus calling them every single day and saying, hey, have you got to it yet? Well, we were thinking about taking the measurements here in the next few days for that fridge, but well, we don't know.
Well, and
I
heaven
don't know.
forbid if I
You know?
should get an email status update of what's going on. Even if, again, a worst case scenario, if I had to drop my equipment there or if I had to make a service appointment, could you send me an email and say, okay, like you're in the queue? All right, we got you covered. You're in the queue. We got 14 jobs in front of you. All right. And then next week, I see we got 8 jobs in front of you. I at least feel like we're making progress
Mhm.
rather than me having to call people and pester them. I really don't want to pester people. I would prefer to have some way that I could be updated of the status rather than just assuming they've forgotten about me, which
Mhm.
in fact happened the other day. One of our repairs, it was in a shop at Cummins, and they were doing a little engine diagnostic. We had an engine light, and I called and they said, "Oh, yeah, the guy's working on it right now. He'll call you back in 10 minutes." That was at like 4 o'clock one day. Of course, nobody called me back. I call in the next morning. "Oh, yeah, the guy's working on it. I'm going to have him call you in just a few minutes." Nobody calls me back.
Also, a side note from anybody's perspective, if somebody calls you and you tell them that you're going to call them back,
Yeah,
why in the world would you just never call them back?
it
At
happens
least call them
all the
back and
time.
say, you know, hey, Jefferson's not in the office today, um, but I thought that he'd be able to call you back, but he just didn't make it to you. Let me see what I can do, or
A
let me make
simple,
sure
"We
that he
haven't
calls you back
forgotten about
tomorrow.
you."
Yeah.
We haven't forgotten about you.
Mm.
We're getting there, but we're still working on it. And again, this is where technology could take that whole process and make it a whole lot easier to tell me what you're doing.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then it ends up that when I called back later on that last time, I got a different person. She said, "Oh, yeah, it's done. It's waiting for you to pick it up." Well, nobody ever told me. How was I supposed to know? Oh, well, it looks like they had a note they were going to call you. They didn't. Was I just supposed to wait until I got tired of waiting and then ask?
Because the thing is, you're very persistent compared to 95%
I
of people.
know.
If you didn't be that persistent, they probably would not have done that work as quick as they did. It's a really,
Yeah,
really messed up system.
it is. It's frustrating for me as a customer to no end. I'm sure they are frustrated with me because I am looking for information and they're trying to dodge that.
Yeah.
So it's make that guest experience a much better situation and allow people self service if you're too busy to answer the phone. I don't have a problem
Hmm.
with that at all. I would much rather prefer that. It would
Hmm.
give me a greater comfort level.
It shouldn't be that hard to pick up the phone or to open gmail.com, enter. Oh, I got an email. Okay, maybe I should respond to it
Yeah,
potentially. I mean,
yeah,
it shouldn't be that hard
no,
to to for basic communication skills. I don't know why everybody gets all this messed up and it tries to overcomplicate it. It's not complicated.
yeah. So, all right, here's my $1 million idea of the week. So somebody's got to implement this. Um, we all have uh, multiple subscriptions to things, right? You might subscribe to Spotify, you might subscribe to the Netflix, you might subscribe to Gmail, whatever it is that you have a subscription for. There are a ton of things that make you a member of the club. All right. So you can show your love for a brand by subscribing to it. Our services is accounting is a subscription service. We want you to love it. We don't want you to just turn it off and on. We want you to love it and stick with it. But you also can pay fees to jump to the front of the line in a lot of cases with subscriptions. So we have this supply and demand problem in the RV industry. Why not let people pay to jump to the front of the line? Why not give a priority service to those who are willing to pay for it? Now, I'm not saying that you're going to just cut off everybody in there, but in this process, if there are people who are using their camper to go camping two weeks a year in the summer, they might not mind and they would rather pay less to let it sit on your lot in January until March when you get around to fixing it. They don't have a problem with it. But there are other people who have places to go and people to see, or they may be using it for work, to go to a conference or to go visit customers. There are a lot of people out there traveling on the road and doing their
And
job, and this
and
impedes it.
and not even just that, but also people who live in their camper full time. Full time
Yes.
RVers really need, if there's an engine problem, they really need that repair fast because where else are they going to go? Their
Yeah.
RV. That's
Yeah.
where if they're living in their RV, they don't want it to be sitting on a lot for 6 months. They will pay probably a good amount of money to get that off your lot as fast as possible.
Right. Yeah. So why not create a subscription model that solves this problem? Uber disrupted the industry by creating a different level of care and experience for their guests. The RV industry can do the same thing. So I
Mhm.
would suggest that they create a multiple level subscription, or it could just be one level. It doesn't have to be complicated. But what if you had a gold level service package where I paid an annual fee to be a gold level subscriber and I got a faster turnaround or I got a quicker triage? You could set the benefits and have even multiple levels, a gold, silver, and a bronze level, but allow me to get service the way I want instead of just being treated as everybody in one group. You have people who are willing to pay more, or may have extenuating circumstances and want to pay more to get the service done at a quicker time frame than others who may not really care. I know that there are services at RV dealers who fix. I've had a person tell me, I have them fix my rig and then I leave it there for about a month after they're done. I don't have to pay for storage. So this guy doesn't care when you get his work done. But yet you have other people that you're making really angry who are waiting patiently and anxiously to get their equipment back. But yet you're treating them all the same. So create a subscription model that has a gold level service package where you go the extra mile for those customers. You don't have to offer it to everybody. You could have a wait list. You could raise the price of it until the price kind of levels out the supply and demand issue. But offer a service, a premium service for your customers who want to love you instead of just making them frustrated. And I guarantee you, if you have that premium level service, those people have loyalty. Guess where they're going to go when they want to buy their next camper or next Class A or Class B or C? They're coming directly to you because you offer that product.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's like an example that I'll give is not even related to RVs, but for like trucks and stuff like that. Like, we're looking at getting a new truck. So we you just bought a car from a dealership that's about 30 minutes away, and you ordered your Tahoe, and you ordered it with a sunroof and some heated steering wheel, and my personal favorite, the cooled seats. And then it came and it didn't have a sunroof. It's just got like no sunroof. It didn't
Yep.
have the heated steering wheel. It did not have the cooled seats. And that's like one of those things. It's like, well, I don't know if I want to go back here. But the big thing was that they pushed against the GM discount, which is basically means that they just don't get as much money in profits. It's the only thing that really means. And during COVID, when you bought it, they didn't want to give that GM discount because they wanted to, if they could get paid the next person, if they could get paid by the next person to just whip out cars like they were doing, they don't want to give away all that profit because they don't think that it's worth it to them. But a guy next to us that's also in the Chamber of Commerce that you're in,
Mm-hmm.
he owns a Chevy dealership, and he said, and you asked him, you're like, you still doing the GM discount? Oh yeah, we'll always do that. And if I don't know him personally, but I'm assuming he's probably a good guy. I mean, I've met him before, and he's a good guy. Um, but just because you know somebody could have possibly just pushed them to give you the GM discount because you know who he is. So it's like, I don't know how
But
it
it's a
good.
loyalty thing
Yeah,
now
you're
because
loyal to him because of that.
the experience is going to be better with somebody who says, "Yeah, we get it. We get that you have that discount, but we know you're going to bring it in for service
Mhm.
each and every day that you need to bring it." You're not going to say, "Well, do I go down the street cuz this guy has a $10 off on his oil change?" No, I'm taking it to his dealership every single time I
Mhm.
need service, and he's the first one I'll think of now when I want to buy a car.
And God forbid you didn't have the GM discount, and he said that, something like that, or
Yeah,
your GM discount expired, you'll go buy another car from him in the future, and he'll
absolutely.
make the profit. It's
Yeah,
not like
and
like
I'm
we
going to
talked
send
about
other
this.
people there.
Yeah, we talked about this in our customer service episode, so go watch that. I think it was episode 16, maybe something like that, 16, 15, somewhere in there. Like 2, maybe 3 weeks ago from when this podcast is dropping. But we talked about the lifetime value of a customer and how you really have to look at how much the customer is valued, especially in campgrounds and that kind of stuff, because it's all an experience. You're paying for an experience. You're not necessarily just paying to park your RV. And service is the same way. If not just if you buy an RV there and you have a good experience, if you bring it back for service, that's where your lifetime value is. If they bring it back for service, you're going to be
Yeah.
making the money every time if they're loyal to you.
And it's
So
the opposite if the service is bad. You're gonna
yeah,
say,
exactly.
"Man, I'd love to buy an RV from them, but geez, their service is terrible. I'm gonna
Yeah.
take it go to another dealer."
Yeah. Hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I think that there's a pretty big problem here that we've addressed in the RV service industry. And especially for family owned campground owners, you have to look at it from the perspective of every second that it sits on that RV lot is a second that they're not here with me,
Yeah.
where I'm not bringing in the revenue. So
Exactly.
you got to really look at the industry wide levels. You got to be concerned that, not just what is going on in your park, but the industry has a lot bigger impact than you think on your park. The the campground industry is very powerful. It's got a big community around it. But there's some things that just need to be improved, and this is definitely one of them.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I'll be really happy the day that it is improved a whole lot more as well. And the other really important thing that I'll mention is we've talked about the generational transformation of the campgrounds with millennials coming in where they use a lot more technology. They want to be able to check in online. We They also want to be able to see these same things we talked about with software for service of their RV. They want to be able to book an appointment for service online, just
Mhm.
like they want to be able to book to come to your campground. They want to know they're impatient people too. The baby boomers, in a lot of cases, may be retired and have a lot more time to wait. Uh, but the millennials have places to go and people to see, and they want to use technology efficiently to make sure that they stay on the road when they want to stay on the road.
Mhm. Yeah, and I know we talked on last episode with Ben. We talked about the whole thing of calling. People don't want to have to harass you. They don't want to call you. I'll be the
Yeah,
first to tell you that if I want to know some information, I'm going to do everything I can to look on their website to find that information before I call you. Um, eh, Sometimes it is nice to be able to call for certain things, but I don't want to have to call to get an online reservation, for instance. I don't want to have to call to see the status of my RV every single day. It's
right.
it's just hard because you got to find a good balance because especially with the new generation coming up, we don't like to call.
Yeah. And I think the industry is changing and hopefully for the better here. But if we think about how the industry is structured, um, in the manufacturing process, I'm sure it has come a long way from where it was before because the industry itself is run a lot by the Amish workers. And the Amish workers are not going to take the technology really highly. It's against their religion, so they have a passion for not utilizing technology, and I know that probably makes it a lot harder in the manufacturing process. But even the Amish have come a long way in their use of technology. Many of them have cell phones now, which would have never happened in the past. So we've got to move the industry forward into the technology, including the manufacturing process, all the way on down the line to everything from service to utilizing the RVs. There's a lot of technology built inside the RVs that obviously is a lot better than it used to be, but still has ways to go too. So, managing that technological change will really help the industry in the long run, and it needs to become a higher priority in the service line, in my opinion.
Hmm. Yep, I agree with you there. All right, well, I think we covered
Yes.
everything that we wanted to cover on RV service and how.
Yes. So ring the bells of the industry leaders, any that you know, and keep pushing this topic forward so that we
Mhm.
get some action to bring it up a
Yeah,
level.
and we have the fee here on the show. We don't charge any sort of monetary value to watch the show. It's all free. We don't put ads on the show, even though I know we could be making money if we put ads on the show. We have the fee, and the fee is this: you share the show. If you found value in the show, share the show. If you didn't like the show, don't share the show. That's it's all word of mouth. So, um, but if there is somebody who owns an RV service dealer that you know, share this show with them and let them know that um, that we want them to hear our message here. And
Absolutely.
like we said, it's very important you realize that every second that RV is on their lot is a second that it's not on your lot. So make sure you share that show if you know anybody in the industry. And let's kind of break these chains of the old technology and um, move on to the more modern stuff, because that's what generally is going to keep us going and keep the industry booming and keep the industry growing as we want it to do. So yeah, if you enjoyed the show, make sure you share the show, leave us a review on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you want to be. Overcast, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. You know who uses Google Podcasts. If you use Google Podcasts, leave us a review. Um, yeah, make sure you share the show. Find us on any social media platform at Campground Compass. We're here for you. If you have any questions, feel free to email hi@campgroundcompasspodcast.com, or any ideas. If you have any sort of things you want us to talk about, any questions, um, anything from tax questions to um, stuff from full-time RVers, we're here for you. So make sure you hit us up in the comments and in the emails, and you can always hit us up in the DMs anytime you need to. So yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed this show, and hope we brought you some value. If you did, share the show, and yeah, we'll see you next week.
All right. See ya. Thank you for listening to Campground Compass. I'm so glad you joined us. Check out the show notes and more of our seasoned advice at campgroundcompasspodcast.com. While you're there, be sure to explore the archives for previous episodes. And if you never want to miss a single audio adventure in 4-season business growth, subscribe to this podcast here and on YouTube. If you like what you're hearing, please consider leaving us a positive review on iTunes. It would be very much appreciated. Friends on social media, check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Campground Compass. Until next time, stay savvy.